You're listening to Heroic Reflections, honoring the stories behind the service, hosted by Liam Steele. On this episode, Major William T. Moss, United States Army.
Hello, I'm Liam.
How are you?
Thanks for participating in my project.
My pleasure, William.
So, why did you join?
Why did I join the military?
Yeah.
A couple reasons. So I was named after my grandfathers, who I never met, and both of them served in World War II. So that was part of it. And then I was recruited to play hockey at West Point. So I wanted to play Division I hockey. So West Point gave me that opportunity, and I wanted to serve. You know, when I was a sophomore at North Reading, I had the Marines come to my house twice. My mother was not really thrilled about that, but you know, I'd always had just a desire to be part of the military. I always, you know, looked up to the veterans in my family, my uncle and my cousin. So,
Okay. So, you went to college first, right?
I did.
Okay, that's fine. Pierce, could you have some questions?
So how did that work? So when you're at West Point, did you do like 2 years, or like how did that work for the military and actual learning?
The West Point is the Army's college. You know, they have ROTC. You can go to any other 4-year degree and get a commission through ROTC. There's a couple other ways you can do it, but I went through West Point, which is a direct commissioning source once you graduate. It's a little bit different. So, you know, we wear uniforms. Our rooms are inspected every day. Our summers are not necessarily free. You might get a week or two off. Otherwise, you do military training. I want to say 80 or 90% of the professors were military officers. And there's a 3-star general who's in charge of the school and the post. And then there's a 1-star dean in charge of the academics for the school, and there's another 1-star in charge of just discipline and training of the core of the students. So after you graduate, you owe the Army 5 years on active service, and then if you want to get out after 5 years, you owe them 3 years in the reserves.
Okay.
How does the training work when you're at West Point?
So it depends. So yeah, my freshman year before the summer, we had cadet basic training. So it was 7 weeks. And the upperclassmen are the drill sergeants and the officers that run the training. And then they have active duty, you know, the professors in the summer that oversee it and make sure that things are going correctly. Then as a sophomore, you have another 6 or 7 week training session at West Point. It's a military base, so there's the school part that's along the Hudson River, and then there's maybe 10 miles by 20 miles training area in the mountains behind it, and we do the training out there. So there's rifle ranges. We shot artillery out there. We flew Blackhawks, all that fun stuff, and a lot of unfun stuff. Additionally, they do a lot of discipline and making sure that standards are upheld. So like I said, you know, our rooms could be inspected any day. And then, you know, once a quarter, they do a Saturday morning inspection. So
He's lagging. Okay, maybe tell me to turn off the video. I don't think your camera is working. Pierce, is yours working?
I can't see me there. It stopped working for me.
Mr. Moss, yeah.
All right, where did I was rambling? Where did I tail off?
Yeah, you're talking about the training at West Point.
Okay. The network bandwidth is low. I'm not sure why it's low. All right, I'll start again. So the training starts in the summer with cadet basic training, and it's a 7-week long program. And the first half of it is teaching you how to be a cadet. shining your shoes, our uniforms, a lot of that stuff. And the second half is in the field, in the woods, learning how to shoot a rifle, take apart a rifle, assemble a rifle, military ranks, customs and courtesies. And your sophomore year, it's a similar situation, 6 or 7 weeks. That's almost all in the field. And then as a junior, you help run one of those trainings, either of the sophomores or the freshmen. And then I spent a month following a lieutenant around in Korea before my senior year. So that was a lot of fun. And then I had the opportunity to go to air assault school, which is jumping out of helicopters. So I did that and got my air assault badge.
What was Korea like?
Korea was very interesting. Great country, great culture, but they're still at war. The North Koreans signed a peace agreement with the UN. They never signed it with South Korea. So there is tension there, and there's shootings there constantly at the DMZ. I was about a half an hour south of there. And then once a month, they do a full rehearsal if a war kicks off. And the sirens go off, the whole country can hear it. And it's just a training day, just so that everyone knows what vehicle they're going to, all their stuff is packed, what their mission is. So it's, at that time, it was before September 11th. So it was, for me at least at that point, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but it was real.
Okay. After college, did you get deployed?
I did. So right after I graduated in 2004. I went to Oklahoma and I became an artillery officer. And my first assignment was in Germany. So I got there in January of 2005. And in August of 2006, I deployed to Kuwait for a month. And then I went up to Baghdad the following month. So around September, I believe.
Okay. Did you have like a certain job or role?
Yes, I had 2 jobs when I was there. I started out as the battery executive officer. So I was in charge of all the logistics for the battery, which really was all of our vehicles. So as I said, I was an artilleryman, but we didn't bring our cannons. We left them in Germany and we converted to infantry. So my first half of the deployment, my battery, which I converted to an infantry company, was in charge of escorting the bomb squad around Baghdad. So if someone called in an IED or an unexploded ordnance or something they thought was, we'd go out in a 3-vehicle convoy, and then the 4th vehicle was the bomb team with their little robot. Or if an IED had gone off, we'd go out and the bomb squad would inspect. And they're called EOD, explosive ordnance. They would inspect the site and just to see what exactly was, how big was the bomb, how it was implemented, what methods they used. And the second half of the deployment, I was a platoon leader. I moved from Bravo Battery to Charlie Battery, and I had a platoon of artillerymen who had converted to infantry, and we had a sector just south of Abu Ghraib Market, just outside our base, Camp Liberty. And we were responsible for patrolling it, making sure nothing bad was going on. And then I was responsible for meeting with the important sheiks and tribesmen in the area. So we'd go out 7 missions a week, so 1 a day, and then one day we'd go out for 2 missions, and then we had 1 down day for maintenance on our Humvees.
Okay. Pierce, do you have some questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah. What was it like living in Baghdad?
So I was in a little trailer hooch, so just probably not dissimilar to the ones you see in FEMA after a hurricane. I want to say it's probably 15 feet long and 10 feet wide. The first half, there were 2 hooches in that trailer, so it was me and another lieutenant on one side, and the 2 other lieutenants of the battery on the other side. When I switched over to Charlie Battery, I had my own room, but it was only a third of the trailer. And we had a typical Army steel bed with a uncomfortable mattress on top of it. We had dial-up internet that we paid for. And then we had a really nice chow hall.
Mhm.
So it was in that respect, there's a gym across the street, but there's a really big, the Camp Liberty is right next to the Baghdad airport. And it was a massive, massive base.
Okay.
What was it like working with the bomb technicians, like driving around in the Humvees?
So again, I was the executive officer, so I was in charge of logistics. So I didn't go out very much at that point. I think it was rewarding when they would find a bomb, and nine times out of 10 they'd blow it up right there. Just knowing that it stopped either other U.S. or coalition forces from being struck, or Iraqi civilians as well. They're just as apt to get hit with some of those, especially the buried ones.
Mhm.
How long were you in Iraq for?
I was there for 10 months. So I left in June 3rd of 2007.
Where did you go after Iraq?
So I was injured in Iraq. So on June 3rd, we were coming back. I had a meeting with Sheikh, one of the sheikhs in my neighborhood. We were building a project with him. And on the way back, we had to go through Abu Ghraib Market, which was overseen and patrolled by the Iraqi army. So it wasn't one of our sectors, but it was the way back to our base. So we had to, that's, it was the most dangerous part of our mission. Typically, we had a very good relationship in our area. That area, we just passed through, we didn't know really many of the locals. It was a Sunni area, and the Iraqi army was mainly Shia. So there's a lot of tension in that area, to say the least. And I was second vehicle out of 4, and it's called a closed wire IED. So it's kind of like a garden hose laid across the road. And when my Humvee rolled across it, it closed the circuit, which set off the IED. And so it went off on our rear wheel. So I was a patrol leader. I was a platoon leader. So I'm in the, as you would say, shotgun. So I had the driver, I had my gunner up top. My interpreter was behind me. And unfortunately, where it hit near the rear axle, right above that is actually where the gas tank is. So it was kind of a double explosion. I got out of the vehicle immediately. I was on fire. So thankfully, stop, drop, and roll, like I learned in kindergarten at the bachelor's school, came into good use for me. My interpreter, unfortunately, did not stop, drop, and roll, and he was walking around on fire, and it was a ambush. So we were getting shot at the same time. Fortunately, the platoon, they're very well trained by the people that were responsible for them before I even got there. They went to where they were supposed to, provided 360-degree security. They returned fire, and I was quickly escorted out of there. I'd say within an hour. They had our QRF came out, quick reaction force. They're on base. They're always ready to come out in case something happens. So they came out and they got me. Unfortunately, my gunner, Sergeant Kimmel Watt, never made it out of the Humvee. He passed away that night. My interpreter and I were taken back to the base aid station, and then we were flown to the green zone, which is probably 10 miles away at the most. That's where the big hospital was. So in the morning, they fill us up with a lot of drugs. So I can't give you a play-by-play, but they saved me. But my interpreter didn't make it. He had too many burns. They're internal for him. So in the morning, so that happened. It happened on a Saturday night going into Sunday morning. So then Sunday I was there for a little while, and then I flew out to a larger logistical base, and then they flew me to Germany, I believe Sunday night, Monday morning. And I was there for less than a day, and then they flew me to Brooke Army Medical Center, which is outside San Antonio, Texas. I want to say I got there Tuesday night. So that's how I left Iraq. Not how I wanted to leave it, certainly, but very blessed to have made it home.
Yeah. How did you continue your military career after that? Or was that the end?
That was not the end. No. So I was there for a little over a month, recuperating. They gave me a month at home. And then I went back to Germany, I'd say in August. And then I became the rear detachment. So usually you leave about 10% of your 10%, 5 to 10% of your unit is left behind. Because you're always getting new soldiers in, as even while you're deployed. Soldiers get hurt and they get sent back. You have to take care of the families, your liaison. So I was in charge of the logistics for the brigade. And we had a very rough deployment on brigade. I want to say we lost over 50 soldiers. So then we had, those ceremonies we had to prepare for, and just closing out some of the logistical needs of the unit, bringing them all back home. They came home in November, just before Thanksgiving. And then after that, I served another, that was 2007. I served another 5 years on active duty. So I went back to Fort Sill in Oklahoma, the captain's career course for artillery officers. And then from there, I went out to the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, halfway between LA and Vegas. It's a big, I want to say it's 100 miles by 90 miles. It's a massive base.
Wow.
But we play laser tag with tanks. So all the big heavy units come there before they're ready to deploy, and we validate them. Mm-hmm. Them getting there, getting their stuff off, and they go in and they qualify on their weapon systems. And then for the last 10 days, we have a simulated war in the desert. So I was part of the unit that they fought against. We call the opposing force, called the Op4. And so I commanded out there as the Op4. And they're all different missions. So we would pretend to be Iraqi or Afghani civilians, depending on where they were going. We had insurgents. We had part of our team pretended to be coalition forces that they had to work with. Mm-hmm. And then we had, I want to say 80 Iraqi, 40 Iraqi and 40 Afghani, give or take, interpreters that came over. Mm-hmm. And then they'd go down to LA so we do it once a month for 10 times a year. And they bring in Iraqi or Afghani Americans, and they would play the sheiks or the imams, local civilians. And so they'd pay them as actors for those last 10 days. So they try to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, we went back to regular offensive operations with no Iraq or Afghani component to it. Mm-hmm. So as the Army would have operated beforehand, force on force, we would use Russian or Chinese tactics and use simulated Russian or Chinese vehicles. And we would fight the American forces just like they would in an open terrain conventional war. Mm-hmm. So then in 2012, November, I got off active duty and I joined the reserve unit up in Chicopee, and stationed at Westover Air Force Base. And so I was there for 3 years, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. We had a unique mission to respond to a disaster in the homeland. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole slew of disasters categorize, and the worst one would be a nuclear attack or a nuclear meltdown. So we would train for the worst case scenario, which would be a nuclear attack. So there's an active duty unit that did this. There was a National Guard unit, and we were the reserve unit that did it. So there's 3 separate organizations that could respond. Then after 3 years, just on typical reserve duty, they called me up to active reserve duty. And I served as the brigade operations officer for 3 years, or for 5 years, excuse me. Same mission. So we had the same mission for 8 years. And I closed that out around 2000, what's 24 now? 2021. I finished that mission. And now in May, next month will be 20 years, and I will retire shortly thereafter.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Can't wait.
Is there anything you wish you knew before you joined the military?
Anything I wish I knew? Is that what you said? Well, there's a lot I wish I knew. No, I mean, I'm very glad I went in with eyes wide open. I knew what I was getting into. I volunteered. There were chances, up until your first class of junior year at West Point, then you're locked in. Up until then, you can resign. So September 11th happened my sophomore year. So, we all knew what we were doing. Those of us that stayed. Very happy I chose Germany. It was a great experience living in Europe. So that was 2005 to 2009. So 4.5 years with 1 year in Iraq. I went to Oktoberfest. I ran with the Bulls. Went to the Pope's inauguration. So I took advantage of living over there. So the travel was amazing. As far as anything I wish I knew beforehand, I don't. I'm sure there might have been. I'm glad I chose artillery, and maybe I would have chose infantry, in hindsight, or engineers. But no, there's nothing specific, I guess.
Well,
Probably not a good answer, but that's what I got right now.
do you have
Yeah.
any? Oh, sorry, appreciate you.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any plans for after you get out of the military in a few months? Like for what you're gonna do after?
Yeah, so I got off active reserve in 2020. So I'm just going one weekend a month again. So it's not that big a deal. It'll be nice to have those weekends back. I have 3 little kids and my wife to spend more time with them. But I have a regular 9-to-5 job. I work for Eversource, the energy company here in Connecticut. So continue to do that and support. I'm in the VFW. I got a Purple Heart, so I'm in the military order of the Purple Heart Foundation. So those types of things.
Do you have any advice for someone thinking about joining?
I would go into it expecting that you will go to war someday. I hope you don't. I hope it doesn't happen. But if you're going to join the military, you need to expect to. So when it happens, it's not a surprise. It's an amazing organization. All of them, all the different branches have their uniqueness to them. I would advise you to go talk to people, particularly people that recently got out, because the Army is always changing, and the other services as well. The Army was the most diverse organization I've ever been a part of. I mean, my first unit, we had soldiers from every walk of life, rural, urban, non-U.S. citizens that joined the military to become citizens, just from all over the world. So that part of it is fascinating. Like I said, the Army sent me to Korea, sent me to Germany, sent me to Japan. Just, it's nice to see the world, especially with someone else paying for it. But you got to know going into it and expect that you will go to war someday and everything that goes along with that. Fortunately for me, I was young. I didn't have a wife or kids. I can't imagine, looking back at what I went through, some of my soldiers did. And that's a tremendous sacrifice. much more than, and I was single 25-year-old guy. I mean, it was, my parents and my brothers and my aunts and uncles and everything, but it's a little bit different when you have to leave a family. But yeah, you have to go into it with knowing all those things and knowing you're still committed to do it, for sure.
What have you learned that you've been able to apply to your life? Like use?
There's a lot of things I learned, I look at challenges now as opportunities, and taking on hard challenges are very rewarding to me. And I think the Army, I'm going to say I didn't think that way beforehand, but it certainly reinforced that. And then the leadership you learn, regardless of what your rank is, as you move up, whether you're a private, moving up to a sergeant, or you're a lieutenant like I was, moving up the ranks, those leadership skills don't leave you. And it certainly has helped me in my civilian career. Just understanding people. The Army specifically is a very people-oriented business. You have to love dealing with people. Otherwise, you'll be miserable in the Army.
Okay. Pierce, do you have any final questions? I think.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. How does the reserves work? Do you just live on like a military base over the weekends and then just go back to your normal civilian life during the week?
For the most part, yes, it's really. I mean, so it's Westover. So if you live within an hour, you can go home most nights. So if I go there Saturday morning, I'll come home Saturday night. Other times we go to Devon's, which is just less than an hour north of Worcester. So then those nights we stay in barracks, or we sleep out in the woods. We have tents, so we'll do that. But yeah, for the most part, you have a civilian career. And certainly since September 11th, employers understand a lot more than they used to what it means. So I'll miss Fridays at work because it's not a Saturday, Sunday. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then they know I'm gone in the summer for at least 2 weeks. And I'm not gone on vacation. I'm gone. I'm out working. And then a lot of the reserves is logistics. I'm actually in an engineer unit. But anytime there are major operations, reservists will end up going. So you can get activated and put on. So I was put on active orders for 5 years, but it was stateside. But, at the end, when I was the operations officer, we sent units to Thailand, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait. And so, companies underneath us would deploy just at their own company, not with the larger unit of ours. We'd attach them to an active duty unit or National Guard unit that was deploying.
Okay. So something I thought I should bring up is that in about 2 weeks, me and Pierce's Boy Scout troop, we're hiking to West Point. So we don't really go to West Point. It's this big like area where cadets at West Point have where we're gonna camp, and then one day there's gonna be a bunch of activities where they're handing out like these medallions that we have on our uniforms.
I see those.
And
Nice.
we just like hiking 4 miles and hike out. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
West Point's beautiful. When you're there, like I was, you don't appreciate it. But I'm sure for you guys, that will be fun.
Yeah. For people who might read about my project, do you have like anything that you'd like them to know about yourself or your military career?
Not specifically. I mean, other than, I'm very proud. I grew up in North Reading, went to North Reading, bachelor school, middle school, North Reading High School. Very proud to be from North Reading. Proud to have been in the Army, served in the Army.
All right. That's all of us.
That's it. That was easy, Liam.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Heroic Reflections, honoring the stories behind the service, hosted by Liam Steele.
This podcast is part of the NORCAS Podcast Network. Check out more podcasts at podomatic.com/NORCAM.